Hey guys, I'm ZSH Plays, welcome back to Planet Wild. Today we are making your most requested habitat, the Arctic. So we're here on a blank map as always. This is actually the Antarctic map because it most closely matched what I wanted this to look like. I didn't want to just make the Arctic in general, so I've chosen a specific place, the island of Spitsbergen in the Svalbard archipelago in the Norwegian Arctic, because it features an incredible host of wildlife, including 3 animals that we have in Planet Zoo, the Arctic fox, the reindeer, and the polar bear. It's also a haven for seals and whales and dolphins, but interestingly enough, no trees. But seeing as you can't get rid of all the trees on the map, I've made a bit of a feature of them in one area for the reindeer. A lot of terrain work to be done in this episode. There is going to be a lot of water on this map, but it is a really beautiful map, as you can see. You even get the northern lights at night. So the first thing to do is to get the water in. This is going to be the Arctic coast. There aren't any blank or completely blank maps without horizons in Planet Zoo, sadly, so doing an ocean is pretty tricky. There is one fairly simple solution though, which is to never point the camera towards the edge of the map. So this is just the beginnings of it. It's going to be a lot bigger than this, but I just wanted to experiment with the depth and the watercolor and things like that. So this is the first thing I built, which is just a little bit of ice that's broken off into the sea. I've used a mixture of the snow rocks and the ice rocks. Snow rocks on top, ice rocks underneath, to really give it that sort of realistic feel. I've actually hidden some spotlights underwater as well, shining directly at the ice, so that it's really bright and you can really see it, because that's what you get with all the reference photos I was looking at. There's a really brilliant sheen on the ice, even though it's underwater. You can use the normal tundra rocks as well, if you like, because they will automatically be covered in snow as soon as you put them in. They're a little larger than I would like, but that's the smallest ice block available to my knowledge, so that's what I've gone with. And it looks really good as you sort of sweep across the bay here. And then here you can see the first bit of terrain work that I've done, apart from digging a giant hole for the water, which is the beginning of the shoreline. So what I've done is hidden a load of heaters under the terrain to melt the snow, and then used the rough rock texture, the smooth rock texture, pretty much all the textures really, until I was happy with the final result. And I think this really looks like the sort of coastline that you get in all the reference photos I was looking at over in Svalbard. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. I think that is how you say it. Norwegian is not my first language. One of the really cool things, which I didn't even know until I started making this, is that the snow will actually take on the texture of whatever terrain paint you've used underneath it. So you can use dirt to get smooth snow, the rough rocks texture to get more broken snow. If you use the long grass, it pokes through. It's really impressive how the game handles it. So moving on to the next part of the coastline, this is a much more impressive part of it, a lot higher. This really gives you the feel of the sort of glacier feel carving into the sea. For this, I have used one of my favourite workshop items, which is Zoo's mud walls. They are so versatile. Normally you would use them to make the sort of modern style mud walls that you would get at the back of a modern zoo enclosure, but the great thing about them is they are flexi-color. If you have the patience, you do have to do it pretty much individually, because it's a mixture of loads of different pieces, so you can't just select all of it. I spent a very pleasant half an hour or so recoloring every single tree and rock in this piece, and I think it really works as a sort of ice wall, and then building the terrain up behind it to join onto the top. Very happy with that. You can see that the rest of the map is still just a giant expanse of nothing. So that is the next thing that we're going to get onto, starting to fill that up. I've put a big pile of rocks and ice here, which I really like. I think this is my favourite part of the build so far, definitely. It just looks really natural the way it's breaking off into the water. I've also put some more icebergs and sort of rocky outcrops, etc. into the sea for the seals to lie on once we get them in. Talking about the sea, we need to do some work underwater as well. All we really have is the sort of results of me digging out the terrain. Doesn't look great, So I'm going to go in and terrain paint all of it, a few piles of rocks, etc. And we'll start to make this look a lot more natural. Now, before we get onto the first actual building in this build, I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who suggested making the Arctic, and in fact anyone who commented on my series. I love reading them, and it's so good to get new ideas. Thank you for that. This is the beach, which I've made, where the snow has melted, using a mixture of dirt and some of the snow rocks. This is the Svalbard Global Seed Centre. This is a real building built into the side of a mountain, although I've not finished that here yet. It is a vault to store eventually the seeds of every plant on the planet, so that all the extinct species, which sadly there will be, can be replaced by seeds from this vault. So it is an amazing place, and it's a really beautiful building as well, so I wanted to capture that. It is in Spitsbergen, where we sit here. It isn't quite set out like this, it's further inland. It's not quite finished here, but it will be by the end of the video. Let's talk animals. So I mentioned them at the start. So the beach that we just looked at is where the polar bear is going to live. The sea obviously is where the grey seal is going to live. This is where the Arctic foxes are going to live. The grey seal doesn't actually get as far north as the Norwegian Arctic, but seals are such an iconic part of the Arctic landscape. I couldn't make an Arctic episode without using them, so the grey seal will be their stand-in. Normally in this series I use upside down elephant grass to keep the species separated, but this map is so big and so spread out, I haven't actually needed to do that. And what I've actually done is use enrichment items to sort of keep them where I want them to be. Okay, so the seed bank is now finished, and if we look beyond it here, we can see the forest where the reindeer are going to live. And I've also put some more scenery, rocks, trees, and buildings, etc. around the rest of the map to stop it from looking so blank. Still got a lot of grass to get rid of. That's a big job because the entire map is covered in long grass, so that takes a lot of getting rid of. But yeah, I've used a lot of species of Arctic trees and trees that resemble Arctic trees, depending on what we have, to build this forest. I'll just show you a couple of the things that I've put in the background to fill the scene out and prevent it from being as empty as the map is at the start. So firstly, we've got this little Arctic explorer's hut that I've thrown together. This exists in order to hide the keeper hut and the trade centre. Here they are. If you're wondering why there's a boat in the ceiling, it is because it is providing the aerial on the roof. And this is a Tecton reject. This is one of those buildings, I don't know if you guys have this in Planet Zoo or any sort of creative endeavour, when you're building something and you have a concept in mind, and as you're building it, you're really enjoying it, and you're thinking this is going really well, I like this. And then you finish and you look at it and you go, what the hell was I thinking? This is awful. This is that. This was a shelter for Tecton Zoo, I think for the cheetahs. Yeah, no idea what I was thinking. It looks like some sort of 50s sci-fi reject. So needless to say, it did not go into the zoo, but I had it in my blueprints, and I actually thought it looked really good on this map because you can't really see it. It just sort of gives the impression of some sort of very sleek building. You don't really know what it is, just covered in snow, and it's pure white, which means it sits really nicely into the background. So I found a home for it. I don't know why it was in my blueprints. I should have just deleted it, but I'm glad I didn't. I'll just show you a few of the enrichment items that I'm using to keep the animals where I want them to be, and then we will take a look at the finished map. So this is for the polar bear. Just got a little cardboard box for him to play with, and hidden away in the background behind the log is some bedding. I've hidden some bedding here for the Arctic foxes under these rocks. And on this iceberg here, there's a jetty bedding platform. There's a few more hidden around in the forest as well to keep the reindeer happy. So I'm going to leave you to enjoy the cinematics where you can see all the animals and the environment in full. Thank you so much as always for watching. I will see you very soon for a new episode of Tecton Zoo. Bye.